Dear students, let us start the discussion on 21st March 2016 newspaper. The first article is related to the Brazilian crisis. In the Brazil, you know that the Bolsa Familia or cash transfer scheme is majorly responsible for the reduction of the extreme poverty. Now, in the economic downturn, the allocations were reduced for this program. It has badly hit the many of the poor people in the country. And the second thing is, the government also has taken a capitalism with human face, with increase in minimum wages, providing for the rights and protections to the working class, etc. It has led to a resentment with the elites in the Brazil. And the elite, they have close connections with the military, and this is what is the reason for the various coups, that is Vargas in 1954 and Gaulat in 1964, they are thrown away from the power. On the other hand, the media is playing a vital role. The most of the media is polarized towards one group, that is Globo Network. And this Globo Network is close to the military and elites, and this is fueling the discontent against the people on the government. On the other hand, corruption. Now it has been popularly said that the corruption in Brazil, it is not the corruption system is being corrupt, it is the corruption itself is the system. And Workers' Party, that is Lula da Silva's party, and Rousseff, they are not immune from the corruption. The charges have reached to the highest level of the president. And next is, the Lula is the most favorable leader, and Rousseff, she do not have a connection with the ground level people. So in this case, she has invited Mr. Lula to be a part of the government, but however, Supreme Court has recently blocked that. So this all shows that the economic downturn with the decrease in demand in China and failure of the government to diversify its economic needs or else diversify its economy in 2001 or during its peaks, that has the roots for this entire problem. Now, the Jammu and Kashmir, in this article, always have a consolidated stronghold on Article 370. Now, in and out, try to understand what is Article 370, how our relationship with Jammu and Kashmir arrived today, and the Vajpayee's insaniyat, how it has reflected the goodwill, and finally how we are able to establish the democratic presence over there, why there was such a huge turnover in the elections in the last term. So try to think on these lines. Now, the BJP and PDP alliance at the close of the verge, and it has been expected that the soon PDP will break down and the alliance or the breakdown fraction will form a government with the BJP. These were the rumors which are going on. Now understand carefully, the trust and confidence on the democracy shall increase among the people, and the people who are trying to find the solution to the problem of the Kashmir in our constitutional framework and trying to engage with the center, their voice shall be heard and they shall be given an opportunity. And the next is, the political alienation of the people will always give rise to the extremism. So the deepening of the democracy and constitutional understanding is the only way out. So in this context, the large impasse which was there after the death of Mr. Saeed has created a sense of urgency, or also has fueled the militancy. The nature of the militancy is also changing now. Young, educated, middle class, they are taking onto the street and militancy path. Probably it is due to the loss of confidence on the democratic system and the faith in the government towards creating the welfare measures towards them. So, revival of the welfare, providing them for connectivity, and mainstreaming these people, these are the things the government has to think about. For this, a stable government is necessary, and the center has to give a hand for a stable government rather than resorting to the political opportunism at this critical juncture. Now coming to the Make in India. Now you all know that under the Make in India offsets policy, so certain percentage of the manufacturing of a deal has to be in India. So in this context, F-16, so which India was talking about, because recently F-16s were awarded to Pakistan. So this F-16 manufacturing facility by Lockheed Martin is expected to come up in India. So what are the advantages of this? Now one way, the disadvantage is Most of the Western countries, developed countries, they want to get away from F-16. If they are talking about F-35, the demand appears to be waning. But on the positive side, many of the developing countries, that is Southeast Asian countries, South Asian countries, they are interested in the buying of F-16. In this case, till 2030, it is expected that F-16s will be in operation among these countries. So it increases maintenance, repair and overhauling facility. That itself is the tune of billions of dollars. So, and the second is, our strategic ties will get deepened. Now, what United States has offered was to Pakistan was the F-16s, normal F-16s. But however, the F-16-60, Block 60, it has said to be a most advanced fighter, and Pakistan was not given this advanced fighter. And India was offered F-16 IN, which is also called as Super Viper, which is much advanced than F-16 Block 16. So it means India has been taken a good favor by the United States of America. So however, so the India's and US defense cooperation is going to get to the next level with this particular project if it comes up in India. And coming to the patents, now what is compulsory licensing? If a patented product under extreme circumstances, either public emergency or the cost is too high, then Indian government can make necessary arrangements or give permissions to the non-patent holder to produce that particular drug. That is what is called compulsory licensing. And India has fought under the Doha Development Agenda to get this compulsory licensing. So in this context, the United States pressure through its trade representative and through its mechanisms called Super 301 and Special 301, under which if US commercial interests or US companies' commercial interests are affected, it can take any restrictions path. So under the pressure from these things, United States of America is putting India to move away from the compulsory licensing. But India has fought for this compulsory licensing and it has to stand for it. Coming to the small savings, cutting of interest rates on small savings, is it good or bad? For me, it is extremely good. The reason is the RBI is cutting the rates, and banks are getting the money at a low interest rate, but banks are not transferring it. What is the reason? Because the banks have to collect the deposits from the people. So these deposits are collected at a very higher interest rate. Why? If not, people are moving to the government-sponsored small savings schemes. So, the deposit rates of the banks have to compete with the small savings schemes and their interest rates. When the deposit collection rate is high, the banks cannot lend at a cheaper rate. So, it means that the higher small savings schemes, they are discouraging the banks to move towards the lower interest rates. This is affecting the economy as a whole because it is worst affecting the growth process. So this is a positive step. It may affect the seniors to an extent, but economic wise or the pragmatism involved in the economy is concerned, it's a right step in that direction. Now, with regard to the Japan, now when Shinzo Abe has visited India in 2015, India made an agreement, or memorandum of understanding with the Japan. In this, the control of the nuclear material, traceability of the nuclear fuel, and consequences in the case of a nuclear accident. These are the three words which are written in the MOU. Till now, India did not give in writing to anyone that it will allow for the traceability of the fuel. And any non-proliferation commitment of India is based on its own nuclear policy, not based on any written commitment. This is the first time that India is giving a written commitment to a country, that is to Japan. And the second is, it is kind of making India to enter into the non-proliferation treaty from the back door, where the traceability, all these commitments of the non-proliferation treaty slowly are being imposed to India. And the most important thing is, if India deviates from it tomorrow, then the financial accountability can be ensured by the Japan. So from this, India has gone into more a nuclear straitjacket. That's what has been said as. Now, UNESCO updates the protected biosphere reserves. Now here, what is a biosphere? What is Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO? what are the biosphere reserves in India? But prelims perspective, what are the new biospheres that have come up? So try to understand this Isle of Man, Alberta in Canada. Try to go through these things. These are the factual information. But however, try to see from your environmental classes what is Man and Biosphere program, what are the biosphere reserves in India. Coming to the Cuba, now the Cold War era, almost USA and USSR are a blink-to-blink situation because of the stationing of the missiles in Cuba. This is called Cuban Missile Crisis. After the overthrowing of the Batista, a US-favored government, the revolution has brought in the Fidel Castro's government, and it is a communistic form of the government at the heart of United States of America. That is the heart of the North American continent. American continents, I can say it as. So in this context, their relationships are always stressed and strained. So for the first time, the American president is visiting Cuba in 88 years. So it is a landmark event in its per se. And this revival will have many repercussions for the United States of America. And America is going to gain the lost ground in South America because of its revival of the relations with Cuba. So let us see how the things unfold. I can say there are three diplomatic victories for Obama. One is revival of the relations with Cuba, and the next with Iran nuclear deal, and then democratic transition in Myanmar. These three can be said as Obama's signature diplomatic victories. Now, antimicrobial resistance, the repeated use and unregulated prescriptions, lack of monitoring in the continuation of the drugs, these are the problems which we see. So in this case, what I can say is, India is increasing the budgetary allocations for innovative practices onto the antimicrobial resistance. So with regard to this, $1 million have been allocated so that a research can be taken up to win the longitude prize, which is given for the antimicrobial resistance. Now coming to internet governance. Now till date, ICANN is the major source of the internet governance. ICANN is a corporation, a non-profit body registered under the US Commerce Department. So the National Telecommunication and Information Administration, that is NTIA, is the administering body of ICANN. What the ICANN does, now whatever your website names, the numbers, these are being given by, are allocated by the ICANN. ICANN do not regulate the content on the internet, but provides for the connectivity between various websites. So it gives the addresses to every website. Now, it is soon going to be managed in a multi-stakeholder model. A multi-stakeholder model means the governments of the world, civil society, private sector will all together come, and ICANN will be coming under this particular body, which is made up of the market, civil society and governments. The government of India's stand is this in this case. So multi-stakeholder model it has supported. With regard to the security, the government shall have the primacy. This is what is India's stand on this. Now here, you need to understand what are, that is, combined drugs. So especially with regard to combined drugs now, A plus B plus C, 3 or 4 drugs are made into one tablet and these are being delivered. So these are active ingredients of these combined drugs. Tomorrow a reaction has come up, from because of which the reaction has come up we clearly do not know. And their efficacy is also under question. So that's why the government is discouraging the combination drugs. Now bad news from the beezing. So what are the problems of the beezing? One is bad debts. The NPAs of the banks are too high. And the next is the real estate bubble, credit bubble. It has created the overcapacities. Now, as the global demand is decreased, the export-led market is suffering. It has led to the devaluation of the currency. And also there are growth of zombie firms because of the support from the Chinese government. These zombie firms have started offering the goods at a very cheaper price. So that's why a strong industry was not developed, a competitive industry or market was not developed. Now in this context, the devaluation, zombie firms all have led to the industrial crisis. And to come out of this industrial crisis, the China is offering now or else much cheaper goods. So it means it's a kind of a vicious cycle that China is entering into. So who are getting worse affected because of this? That is the developed countries, because China is the major market for the commodities of the developing countries. So this is what we shall understand over here. So this is about today's newspaper. So let us discuss about the yesterday's question. So the question is, national cyber security policy shall be proactive, offensive rather than defensive. Now, the national cyber security policy and its challenges. So in this case, coordination is the challenge, and then it has to be proactive. You can take the international examples of China and all these things. And then the defensive nature, especially India is vulnerable for the threats because the cyber security policy do not allow for the offensive attacks. And you can explain what are the challenges which are coming from the cyber security, and you can talk about these particular provisions. Now what you can do is, before you attempt this answer, read the National Cyber Security Policy of India once, and then the coordination challenges, and then the lack of proactiveness, lack of necessary infrastructure, and then you can talk about human resources. So all these have to be rectified before you have to move on to the next stage. And in this case, as the threat is increasing, the government also has to take an offensive stand rather than being defensive and reactive. So global threats you have enumerated from this, it can be a good answer. Thank you very much. All the best.